Hello. You're here to face your worst fears? Yeah? Okay, let me just grab you the waiver. You may, in fact, be tackling your worst nightmare today. Oh, yes. Okay, I remember you. You are here just in time for the spooky season, for autumn, to face your fear of classic literature. I'm going to be giving you some recommendations specifically for autumn that I hope you're really going to enjoy. I'll also give you some more information so you know if you're really getting into some troubling water with some of these, if you're facing any particularly nasty monsters, or if it's just all in your head. Guys, welcome back to another installment in my video, I guess series, kind of at this point. I'm recommending you pieces of classic literature because I missed this. You don't know how much of a revival I'm going through right now in terms of classic literature, whatever that even means, because I am in grad school. I'm doing my MA right now. I'm so happy about it. Create a video of classics specifically that I think are really good companions for this time of year when the leaves are falling, when things are getting dark, spooky, when we're celebrating Halloween if you do. The first piece I'm going to recommend to you is not a novel. It's okay. Don't run away. The first piece is actually Beowulf by who knows? We don't know. This one I want to recommend because when I think of autumn and the trees just going and the rain coming and everything falling into a little bit of a decay, I really think about sitting around outside, or what it would have been like in Halloween's past, which kind of relates to another book I have on this list. Specifically, I think a lot about Old English times and the kind of stories that would have been told around the fire or the mead hall, going down to the old mead hall, and we're listening to Beowulf. Beowulf is a big epic poem originally written in Old English. I have an older version here of the Penguin Classics. This one's translated by Michael Alexander. I'd probably recommend you find maybe a different translation, a more recent translation. I've been really interested in reading the one that Tolkien translated, actually. But anyway, Beowulf was written by an Anglo-Saxon poet. They are referred to as the Beowulf poet because we don't know who the heck they are. Possibly a monk. This is a long epic poem that looks back at ages past, actually, in terms of the people it was written for. So in a sense, this could be looking back at their ancestors or some of their possible ancestors who might have come over to England from the Nordic countries. Beowulf takes place in what is now Denmark and Sweden, and it was written about people who at the time were still worshipping pagan gods, even though Beowulf was actually written and performed for a predominantly Christian audience. Interesting. This follows Beowulf, big surprise, who is a hero, I guess, according to their culture. I've always wanted to have a dog named Beowulf, or maybe Beowulf, actually. I have a cat whose name is Grendel, and Grendel is actually the villain in the story. Where is he? So before Beowulf is on the scene, we have this king named Hrothgar, and he is having a problem. He's having a bit of a monster problem. Beowulf is just kind of the exterminator who comes in and helps Hrothgar with his pest problem. The pest is this huge monster named Grendel. Is he man? Is he all beast? What does he look like? How has he even come about? So there's so much about Grendel in the text that is very ambiguous. We don't know exactly too much about him. One of the most important things we know is that he is a descendant of Cain from the biblical story of Cain and Abel. Obviously Cain, who murdered his brother Abel and was forever cursed by God, had a mark placed upon him and was sent into exile. Grendel is said to be one of the descendants of Cain. Grendel, I'm just thinking of my cat. Grendel gets pretty snacky at night, honestly. He comes over to Hrothgar's hall, which is full of men, soldiers, people who are there feasting and sharing stories and generally partaking in human companionship. Grendel is on the outside looking in, and part of the ways that he allows himself in a way to get inside this community is, I guess, by putting the community inside himself, because he breaks in, steals people, makes off with them and eats them. He gobbles them up. He does this night after night. Sometimes I think it mentions that he makes off with 30. Is it 30 men at a time? It said that we may count upon Grendel to eat quite fearlessly the flesh of Geats. They're known as the Geats. Has he not chewed on the strength of this nation? Has he not chewed on the strength of this nation? Are you kidding me? He will bear my bloody corpse away, bent on eating it, make his meal alone, without misgiving, bespatter his moor lair. It's so good. It's so good. I would highly recommend this one if you have a great group of friends who are literally willing to all get copies of Beowulf and then go around in a circle reading it out. It's my ideal autumn's night. Such a good example of how powerful language can be, especially when spoken aloud and shared with other people. There's also a dragon. It's bloody, it's gory. There's a whole idea of the blood feud going on, which is this cycle, basically this perpetuated cycle of violence, wherein if you kill someone of another clan, they now have the literal right to come and kill someone from your clan. It's an eye for an eye system. system and how Grendel and the hero, Beowulf, I guess, play into this. Do they correct this system? Is there a sense that something is being done to mend this system, which is actually not really benefiting anyone because this cycle just keeps going on and on. I do want to recommend also John Gardner's Grendel. This is a retelling of Beowulf from Grendel's point of view. If you want to read one or the other or both, that is Beowulf. The next book is deeply unsettling, and I think these are my favorite kinds of spooky autumn reads, and these are also some of the only kinds of spooky books that like genuinely frighten me, is the kind that are just unsettling. It's not so much like outright visceral horror. What really frightens me is when something is wrong, when something is out of place, something's a little bit uncanny, you can't quite place your finger on what's going on, you just have this sense of uneasiness. And I think a lot of what makes up unease in general is the fact that you don't know, or you can't put your finger on exactly what is causing you the distress, if that makes sense. It's kind of like this unknown what's going on. And there's one author who is so good at creating that kind of feeling, Shirley Jackson, and I really want to recommend to you We Have Always Lived in the Castle. I'm just going to read to you the first sentence and you can tell me what you think. My name is Mary Catherine Blackwood. I'm 18 years old and I live with my sister Constance. I have often thought that with any luck at all, I could have been born a werewolf because the two middle fingers on both my hands are the same length, but I have had to be content with what I had. I dislike washing myself, and dogs, and noise. I like my sister Constance, and Richard Plantagenet, and Amanita phalloides, the death cup mushroom. Everyone else in my family is dead. What the hell is this? You open it up, that's the first paragraph, and you're like, what the hell am I reading? It's just so wonderfully, like, odd. Like crooked. Something's a little bit different. I think she's so good at that, and that just like keeps going throughout the entirety of We Have Always Lived in the Castle. I've often thought that with any luck at all, I could have been born a werewolf. What a wonderful thing to say. Has anyone ever said that in the history of ever? Wait, could I have been born a werewolf? No. Oh? No. If you are someone who enjoys going mushroom hunting, even more up your alley if you like little upsetting childhood rhymes. To give you a bit more, we do follow Maricat, and she lives with her sister Constance in a wonderful house up on kind of the hill surrounding the village that they live in. None of the villagers really like them. In fact, they're very aggressive towards the two sisters. It's only the two sisters who live in the house, and they are very suspicious and wary and very unkind if any of the sisters venture into the town, and we don't know why. Although we do know that the rest of the family that used to live in the house is dead, and that's weird and strange. It's really about the connection between the two sisters. I feel that when I read Shirley Jackson, and I've only read her two big, well-known novels, but the way that she writes, wow. Speaking of shrooms, do you know that feeling you get when you like look up your best mate from high school from like 10 years ago and you find out that they're actually living in this completely ruined, utterly decaying big manor house in the middle of nowhere, and they've all of a sudden sent you a letter inviting you to come and visit? No? Oh, if you want to know what that feeling is like, I would highly recommend you pick up The Fall of the House of Usher by Edgar Allan Poe. In these videos, I try sometimes to like give recommendations if you've never read classics, or if you have just been kind of wanting to get into classics, you don't know where to start, or like you are really worried that it's just going to be too dense. You've just like built them up in your head as books that really aren't that enjoyable, because I do and I have known so many people like that in my own life, and I'm like, no, I swear to God, we just gotta find you the right one. In terms of difficulty with the language and the writing and the sentences and the very basic building blocks, I suppose, but they're not really basic at all. Anyway, I think Edgar Allan Poe is on the easier side. I would class him as very approachable, very easy to get into, and on top of that, he's written for us so many gorgeous, delightfully frightful short stories to get into. This is a collection of his classic tales of horror. One I would recommend to you in here is The Fall of the House of Usher. I have not read this for many a year, but I sat down the other day and I read it, and I was like, wow, there is so much in here that I missed when I read it through the first time. This guy, our narrator, gets a letter from his friend that he knew in boyhood, and he's kind of lost contact with him, and his friend is like beseeching him to come and visit him because he's not doing well. And so our narrator, maybe a little bit reluctantly, but he also wants to see what's going on, agrees to go and visit his long lost boyhood friend that he knows even when they were kids. Like, he knew something wasn't totally right there. He shows up, pulls up on his horse to this guy's house, and he's like, oh. So in this house, the House of Usher, lives two people, Roderick and Madeline. Roderick Usher is not well. He's also living in this house that is just kind of like falling in around him, molding around him. It's collecting more than dust. Like, there's mushrooms growing all over the house as well, which might be a little concerning. And something I really do like about Poe's stories is when you have first person narration, and we have, for example, our narrator telling us everything about the house, you can also really get a sense that the narrator has a very sickly disposition himself. Is it really the house that's sick? Is it really the landscape that is decaying and dying and paranoid? Or is it the writer himself? You're like seeing through his eyes the way that he sees his world, which might be with a very sickly, paranoid, mentally ill perhaps, disposition. I actually learned the word ambiguous because of Edgar Allan Poe, because of the nature of his stories. Regardless, there is something wrong here. I also did want to recommend The Fall of the House of Usher as part of the literary phenomenon of the haunted house. I think the haunted house, I mean, it does seem pretty self-explanatory, like your home is haunted, that's not good. I think, like, above all else, above all other dwellings that could be haunted, the home is the most upsetting locale for a ghost to be ghosting. Just taken at a very like primal level as a human being, as a creature on earth, taking the shelter that should be your ultimate location of safety and peace and confirmation of your identity, taking a place like that and making it into a malevolent space, a malignant zone that you're supposed to be living in, that is really, really harmful to the psyche on just like a basic level. What The Fall of the House of Usher explores, also because of how the brother and sister, Roderick and Madeline, inside are acting, and what are the ways that they're acting, and what our narrator finds out about them, it adds a whole new level in terms of like relating the haunting of the house to the family living there. And like We Have Always Lived in the Castle, that's another one that fits right in. What kind of abuses are going on inside the home? Is there really something supernatural happening here, or is it the fact that what is the natural is just horrifying? So The House of Usher references both the literal physical house and also the family line, because their family line has kind of become this very pointed arrow. Why? You can read the book. If you want that juicy 1800s lingo, I wish people talked like this still. And would you look at that? It just started raining. During the whole of a dull, dark, and soundless day in the autumn of the year, when the clouds hung oppressively low in the heavens. Are they oppressively low? I'm enjoying the clouds. I had been passing alone on horseback through a singularly dreary tract of country, and at length found myself, as the shades of the evening drew on, within view of the melancholy House of Usher. The first glimpse of the building, a sense of insufferable gloom pervaded my spirit. I say insufferable, for the feeling was unrelieved by any of that half-pleasurable, because poetic sentiment with which the mind usually receives even the sternest natural images of the desolate or terrible. I looked upon the scene before me, upon the mere house and the simple landscape features of the domain, upon the bleak walls, upon the vacant I-like windows. I-like windows! The English majors are going crazy. Above a few rank sedges, and upon a few white trunks of decayed trees, with an utter depression of soul, which I can compare to no earthly sensation more properly than to the after-dream of the reveler upon opium, the bitter lapse into everyday life, the hideous dropping off of the veil. Maybe a little bit of an edit on what I said before. I think this guy has issues. If I had to read it again, I would pay special attention to the plants, especially the shrooms, the fungus, the mushrooms, growing on the house. And what Roderick has to say about them. Now, brace ye-self for this next one. I don't know if I want to do it to you, but I think we have to in order to face your fear. I think we have to talk about it. So the next one that I'm going to put on here, this is going to appeal probably to only certain people, and that is The Mysteries of Udolpho by Radcliffe. I think if you're feeling like you only want one classic, you only want to tackle one classic, or you're only looking for one old book to read in the twilight of the year, I would recommend The Mysteries of Udolpho, okay, because it's gonna take your time up. So I think number one, you have to be in a certain mood, shall we say, to enjoy. Oh no, I just broke my shirt. You do have to be in a certain mood to really enjoy. Yeah, I think that's possible. I think enjoyment of The Mysteries of Udolpho is possible. If you don't know who Anne Radcliffe is, she is basically the founding mother of the Gothic novel. She's one of the first to write Gothic romance in the English language. Her novels were coming out in the late 1700s, and she wrote stuff like The Italian, The Mysteries of Udolpho, the Sicilian Romance, I believe is another one, and they all had staples of the Gothic genre, like really, really founding staples of the Gothic genre. Iconic architecture. We are often set in very old places, mostly castles, mansions, manor homes. We often have damsels in distress. We also have mentions of the supernatural. We have mysteries. I think what I'm gonna do is tell you a very brief summary, and then I think we might log on to Goodreads, and I'm gonna try to use people's 1-star reviews as a way to convince you to actually pick it up. We follow this girl named Emily. Emily is very idealistic. I really appreciate her. She's in love with nature, like in love with the sublime aspects of nature, and she likes to gaze upon the landscape and admire it like a painting. She has a very close relationship with her father. One day her father dies and she is sent to live with her aunt. Essentially, her aunt marries this nefarious man named Count Montoni. He's from Italy. We have a little stint in Venice, which is quite fun, and then we are spirited away back to the countryside where Count Montoni hatches this plot to basically divest, is it divest? Her aunt of her property. When I say that this moves at a snail's pace, the real horror might have been the commas we met along the way. As you read The Mysteries of Udolpho, you have to be like, okay, you know what? She's doing something new and exciting, and this is going to matter so much to so many people and so many creators down the line. But it's hard to keep that in your head when you're reading like the 20th scene of Emily being like, oh my god, a tree, and then she will describe the tree like she's never seen a tree before. Sometimes she can definitely get herself out of distress, but she is always emotionally in distress. Okay, Emily is always crying. She's always crying. I can't describe to you how much she is not crying. Along the way, she also falls in love with this man named Valancourt, who she meets in France, because most of this is also set in the countryside of France, and he is also a lover of the sublime. Anne Radcliffe, here's what happened. Anne Radcliffe was so in love with landscape painting. I don't know if she did any herself, or maybe she just didn't really have a hand for it, so she's like, you know what? I'm gonna landscape paint on my books. Let's see what the people say. I'm here with the reviews of what people have said, and I hope that by comparison, because these people are just trashing the novel, I hope that by comparison you're gonna find something in what other people dislike that you're going to like, which I think is one of the most beautiful things about literature and also about people in general. And I wish, let me not get into it at the moment. I just think like it's fun that we like different things and that we dislike different things. This review says, first of all, it's worth noting that it's tagged under their university required reading shelf. Not only was this person suffering, they had to suffer. 1 star. I am so glad that's over with. Stop crying, you stupid whiny bitch. Her automatic response to absolutely anything is either to faint or, more commonly, to turn away to hide the tears that welled unbidden into her eyes. Literally every 3rd page or so, Emily is unable to stop herself from weeping. Yes, her father dies, which is pretty sad, but must you really cry because the mountains are so beautiful? The other characters are all shit as well, especially her lover boy who shares her passion for crying at the beauty of the mountains. 1 star. If ever I should run a marathon, when I get tired and want to give up, I shall remind myself that I finished this stupidly long book and therefore I can finish anything. Yeah, I finished the Silmarillion the other day, and let me tell you, I am on top of the world. I feel like I'm unstoppable. I feel like I can do anything. So if you want to get that kind of feeling, read a long book. This next one. 1 star, in which Anne Radcliffe attempts to describe every damn tree, flower, leaf, shrub, rock, hedge, and ray of light between France and Venice. 1 star. Anne Radcliffe appears to have hoarded the entire world's supply of commas and unleashed them all in this novel. Is this convincing you? The real mystery of Udolpho is why every single man has an obsession with Emily, who consistently cries and or faints every 5 seconds and is incredibly supercilious and just in general a massive wet rag. There is absolutely no suspense, and the villain of the story is just a guy who lives in a Gothic castle and has a gambling addiction. 1 star. 1 star. I still don't know what the mysteries were. If you want long-winded descriptions, she's gonna take your breath away. The next recommendation I have for you is something short and very sweet, and that is The Halloween Tree by Bradbury. I love this so much. I have been waiting a year. I have been waiting a whole year to talk about this with someone, to recommend it to you, because I read this for the first time last year and I was blown away, like seriously blown away. I cannot gush to you enough about this book. I was just like, wow. I've never read Bradbury before. This was my introduction to him. I know he has a few other spooky texts out there, but The Halloween Tree, the cover is ridiculously gorgeous, and going into here hoping it was going to be a like sweet Halloween nostalgic kid story, it is so much more than that. This is absolutely for your Halloween candy corn soul. It feels like sitting in the living room with your Halloween costume on, waiting for it to get dark enough outside to go trick-or-treating, and you're sitting there full of anticipation, and you're watching Charlie Brown and the Great Pumpkin on TV. I would always be on the TV right before we went out trick-or-treating as a kid, more often than not with like almost our entire costumes covered up, sometimes by winter coats. This starts on All Hallows Eve with a group of neighborhood boys who are all friends coming out trick-or-treating, and they very quickly realize that they're missing one of them. One of them is missing, and the boy who's missing is the sweetest boy. He has like a sunflower soul. His name is Pip, and he's so kind and sweet. And they're like, where's Pip? Like, what's going on? We gotta go to his house. And a la Bridge to Terabithia, we very quickly find out that Pip is really sick. And these boys are like absolutely devastated because that's their best friend. They end up meeting this like larger than life character whose name is his name is Carapace Clavicle Mound Shroud, and he takes them on a journey to save Pip. And the purpose of this journey is to find out like, what is Halloween? Why do we celebrate Halloween? What are the motivations behind this season? And also around the world, how do people treat Halloween? But more than Halloween in here is really like the darkening of the year, and it's so beautiful. It's such really a story of like human hope, honestly. Like, it goes all the way back to the cavemen, for example. We also go to ancient Egypt. A lot of the boys' Halloween costumes correspond to what they explore in different parts and times of the world. One of my favorite things about it is absolutely Bradbury's writing. It's so beautiful. Anyone could see that the wind was a special wind this night, and the darkness took on a special feel because it was All Hallows Eve. Everything seemed cut from soft black velvet or gold or orange velvet. Smoke panted up out of 1,000 chimneys like the plumes of funeral parades. From kitchen windows drifted 2 pumpkin smells, gourds being cut, pies being baked. Short and sweet recommendation from me, but yeah, I think so educational, especially if you're a kid reading this for the first time, and like knowing the different origins of stuff would have been mind-blowing to me. So absolutely recommend you this. I recommend you this. Also recommend the younger people in your lives this book. The next classic on this list is definitely, in my opinion, I think the most difficult. Yeah, I think it's the most difficult in terms of kind of everything. Have you ever had a really weird babysitting experience? Some people have had it worse than you. This is Turn of the Screw by Henry James. If you start this, if you start reading this in the first few pages and you're like, am I having a stroke right now? It's not just you. I read this a few years ago and I got through the first chapter and I just was like, I thought I knew how to read. I struggled with this for probably the first quarter before you finally get used to the way that this man writes in this book. Oh my god. The story is a frame narrative because it actually starts on Christmas Eve, where a bunch of guys are sitting around telling each other spooky stories, and one guy's like, I have a story for you. And then we get into the story proper of the governess who is going to babysit and take care of 2 young children, Miles in Flora, not Florida, at the behest of their caretaker, who is basically like gone somewhere so far away. It's like when you get to the house where you're babysitting someone and you meet the children's parents or their caretakers or whatever, and as they're going out the door, they're like, okay, do not call me. I don't want to hear about anything that happens. If Susie puts the cat in the oven, I don't want to know about it. I'm going out for a fun night on the town. I don't want to know about anything that happens here. And you're just left alone like, okay, I am now everything to these children. They're under my care, and it creates this really bad anxiety. And then I never went back to babysit anyone ever again. That is the story. Well, actually, there's more to the story. It's a legitimate question. Does she see ghosts? Does anyone see ghosts? Are there ghosts in this book? First of all, let's talk about the writing. Henry James will craft a sentence. Good luck to everyone else. The sentences really felt, for me at least when I was reading it, years ago, like a carpet that you tripped over because the carpet has been rolled under and you catch your foot under it and then you're falling. Add that to the fact that the book only feels like it like looks at things out of the corner of its eye. Like the kind of narrative that we have really feels like someone only slightly glancing at something out of the corner of their eye, not getting a full picture of it, not being able to fully describe that thing, or not willing to fully describe that thing. And so it's incredibly frustrating. It also completely frustrates language because you have this unknown, you have something that everyone is tiptoeing around and that no one wants to properly articulate, no one wants to attach reality to linguistic meaning, and it creates conversations and dialogue in the turn of the screw that is utter nonsense. For example, this is something that the governess says about either the cook or one of the servants that's in the house with her, and that she wanted, by just so much as she did thus see, to make me suppose she didn't, and at the same time, without showing anything, arrive at a guess as to whether I myself did. Crystal clear, thank you. Why, first of all, is the governess convinced that the children are seeing ghosts? Are these things that are going to hurt them? She's obviously quite paranoid about something, but she's also struggling with something that happened in her life before she ever came to take care of Miles and Flora. Everyone's just touching on the subject at hand, referencing it in new, weird, and wacky ways, to the point where language and meaning have just gone on this absolutely convoluted, tangled ride through jargon land and have wound up making no sense whatsoever. It's actually really impressive, and the reason that all this stuff is happening is also very horrifying, and that's what makes Turn the Screw one of the more horrifying texts. I think not because so much like, ooh, like, are there ghosts? Are there not ghosts? Like, what's going on? What's the true answer here? But the reason why we have this tug of war with what we can properly articulate, what remains like repressed or hidden, or what we're unwilling to confront, I think that's super scary. In Turn of the Screw, speaking or not speaking, a refusal to verbalize, is a good way to potentially represent the supernatural. It's not something that can be easily described, not only the supernatural, but trauma in general. This is the kind of classic that, as a recommendation to you, and also in my case, if I were to ever read it again, I would go and comb through like some journal articles and basically be like, okay, what is a good companion here? Because I want to get so much more out of it. The Turn of the Screw is one of those, I mean, every book is, right? But I think with Turn of the Screw, it's abundantly clear that you can spend thousands of years in interpretation here. I did find one article actually while I was like researching for this video, and it's very interesting. It's called Shattered Eden, Subjectivity and the Fallout of Language in Henry James's The Turn of the Screw. I will leave it in the description as well. So in the context of Turn the Screw, talking about how we're unable to confront something horrifying, the article says, an important way in which James achieves the stylistic and psychological effect is by means of language, or conversely, its absence. Such abstracted states, or lacunae, which are gaps or holes, carry hints and even overt traces of past presences. Wow. Because so many conversations in Turn of the Screw, which it goes on to talk about, has so many dots, so many dashes, so many pauses, so many starts and stops of conversations because people like trip over what they can't say or what they're unwilling to say, what they don't want to look at. And yeah, very, very cool, because then you as a reader, you automatically try to fill in those gaps, those blanks with like, what's going on? I think it's so spooky. Communication in the novella is often doomed to failure. Such gaps cannot be articulated. Aposopiasis, I had to look that up too. It's the literary device of you're just done. You just break off in the middle of your sentence, you stop talking. Becomes an intractable feature of the text, while the presence of hyphens and dashes, also representative of absences, scattered literally throughout the author's story, are shown as symbolic of aporias lurking at the subtextual level. I'm like due for a reread of this one as well, but yeah, highly recommends Turn of the Screw. It's not intuitive. It like makes you do really weird things in your brain with the English language in order to understand what's on the page, and sometimes I've been going on about this one for so long, but that's what I love about writing like this or using language like this, is because when like he'll say the weirdest, trickiest, like oddest way of saying something, and because of the kind of like grammar that's used or the words that are chosen themselves, it makes you think about something in a totally different way or begins to bring up different associations that you might not have had with something before, is the Turn of the Screw. Because I've talked so much, I have one more classic text to recommend to you. I don't typically put on these lists stuff that I haven't read, but I feel pretty okay recommending you Shakespeare. To recommend to you his bloodiest play for the spooky season, one I have not read, and that play is Titus, Andronicus. This is a Roman play about the Roman general Titus, and he returns from war at a time when the people in Rome are not happy with their emperor, and they actually want the general, Titus, to be the emperor. He returns with 4 prisoners of war, and the problem is that these 4 people who he's taken prisoner, they all want revenge on him for what he's done. And so, like, mayhem ensued. This seems quite scary to me because I have this, like, really horrific, like, core memory. It's just so interesting what stays with you and what, like, you're afraid of still to this day, even though if you encountered this situation or this place or these images now, they wouldn't scare you, but because they scared you so badly as a kid, it's still like deeply unsettling for you. Anyway, I was sitting on the couch as a kid flipping through the TV channels, and I landed on, like, it was either the History Channel or like the Discovery Channel, and it must have been a documentary about Julius Caesar. The documentary was showing like scenes of Julius Caesar's death as like a reenactment, so you had a bunch of actors dressed up and it all looked like very real to me. I flipped to the channel at the exact time that everyone was stabbing Julius Caesar, and it was just so ominous and awful to me, and like I hadn't really ever been exposed to that kind of gore yet as a kid at the age that I was, I guess, and to just have it like so violently, I guess, shoved in my face just like forever scarred me. Number one, I was scared that I was like really in trouble because I had watched something that I probably shouldn't have been watching, and number two, like it just freaked me out so much because I just watched that guy get stabbed like 44 times. Titus Andronicus, even bloodier though than Julius Caesar, because I wrote it down. I don't know, it has the highest death count of Shakespeare's plays. There's involuntary cannibalism. This one truly the most like visceral on this list, so if you're not good with that stuff, do not read it because I've heard the utmost horrors about this play. Obviously we have the whole eye for an eye mentality here again, and the lengths that people go to enact this revenge. What kind of revenge? It's like, I think Game of Thrones took all of the inspiration. A lot of this, of course, does harken back to like Greek tragedy as well. This is also Shakespeare's first tragedy. However, this is also the play that has the line, "Villain, what hast thou done? That which thou canst not undo. Thou hast undone our mother. Villain, I have done thy mother." If you want some horrid Halloween Shakespeare, this is probably the one that I would recommend. Those are my classic recommendations for a spooky autumn, or if you are wanting to get back into some shorter pieces, or Mrs. Radcliffe. That's it. I hope you got some good recommendations and that you enjoy any of these if you pick them up. And if you do, let me know. And if you have any recommendations that we can all like share together, please leave them in the comment section. I love when you guys do. It's been great hanging out on this rainy, foggy, gloomy afternoon. Ciao!